Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Words or Less, the podcast. Oh, I'm stretching. It's still the morning when I'm recording this, so I'm trying to wake myself up with some coffee, some donuts, get the sugar going through the system. Anyways, episode number 37. I realized I screwed up a few episodes ago and I called something. I think it was the Make, Do, and Mend episode. I called it 35 when it was 36. Regardless, just a little error I wanted to correct. But we are at episode number 37. And our guest is Thomas Chiari. I did not ask him how to pronounce his last name, but that's what I'm guessing. But he plays for a band called Hostage Calm. More about that in a minute. Visit propertyofzach.com. I'm running out of things to say about them, but it doesn't diminish how awesome the site is. They're doing a lot of year-end wrap-up stuff right now. So check that out because that way you're able to catch the records you may have missed. And they're also doing a cool feature leading up to, well, now when this episode is posted, it'll be past Christmas. But they did a thing called stocking stuffers, where basically they just talked to a band member and they shared a memory about, something around the Christmas holiday, whether it was, a funny story or a funny gift or whatever. So, again, the site's awesome. They just showcase more of a personality behind bands. And, that's exactly what I like to find out about, because otherwise they're just random people playing in bands. So propertyofzach.com. Review the show, go to iTunes, drop us some stars, write some nice sentences about the show, or mean sentences. Either way, I accept all forms of communication. And visit the website, 100wordspodcast.com. I've been posting over the past few days year-end lists from previous guests of, their top 5 records of the year. Some of them are kind enough to write a little description about it and send a picture, it's fun stuff. So check it out in the days between episodes. That's where you'll find us. That's where you'll find us doing fun stuff. And you can also email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I recently heard from a new friend, Matt, from Victoria, British Columbia. He sent in something cool that it's been on my mind for a while, because here we are, 37 episodes in, and I have yet to have a female on the show. Obviously, this has always been a point of issue within the independent music scene, and I mean, you could say entertainment as a whole. It's a male-dominated thing, and I'm looking to rectify that. There are a few guests I have in the hopper that I want to get on the show, and it's just been a matter of trying to schedule around their touring and all that type of stuff. So I will break that, and thank you for pointing that out, Matt. I do appreciate that. I want to talk about a few more things as well. I wanted to dedicate this episode to my friend Eugene, who is going through some tough times as of late. And I just wanted to do this in an audio form in order to give him that little hey, that was cool. Or if he listens to it and says, you know what, this sucks, then that's fine too. I went to see Henry Rollins perform recently. He did a spoken word, I think it was 5 or 6 night stint up in LA, closing out his touring activities for the year. I mean, obviously anybody, if you've ever heard anything about him, you obviously know his story. The vocalist for Black Flag, Rollins Band, is a sort of, I don't even know how to describe him now at this point, because basically he just does a bunch of random fun shit. A raconteur, I think that's the appropriate word. Regardless, so he does a spoken word thing and basically, talks about whatever's on his mind. The dude has levels of intensity that are unmeasured. I've never seen anything like it. 2.5 hours, he hardly breathes and blinks, doesn't take a sip of water. He actually makes a joke of it at the very end of the show, where he feels that if he goes down and drinks, takes a break from the audio pummeling that he's giving you, you're going to walk out. And so, yeah, it's just really interesting. He definitely has a persona, and, Henry Rollins to be Henry Rollins, like, I would be so interested to actually know him as an individual, like, go get a casual dinner with him. Because I think the words casual and Henry Rollins don't really mix. But in any event, I really enjoyed the experience. And there were no time during the show that I looked at my watch and was like, yo, this is way too long. I just kept thinking, is he ever gonna like put down the mic for a second or like walk? He just basically picked up the mic, locked in, and just went at it. So I recommend it to anybody who is even remotely interested in him as a person, or just entertainment, spoken word stuff in general. You would probably not find any other performers that do what he does right now. And then I also have been thinking a lot recently, and I would love to hear from you fine folk in regards to the creative side of the brain versus the business side of the brain, the right and left side, and how they obviously intersect and work together. I like to view myself as a creative individual, but the side that I definitely feel dominates is the business side. Like, basically, I look at something creative, whether it's like this podcast, whether it's the bands I've played in, and I always try to think of ways to either, make it better, maybe make money off of it, whatever. I always really kind of distill it down into the simplest of terms as far as a sort of business is concerned, and not like coldly calculating like, oh my gosh, when I formed my first band, I was already thinking about the recording contracts we were going to sign when I was 16 years old. It's like that's not where my head was at. But my head was like, oh, let's get a demo recorded, and like, okay, cool. Like, let's get these tapes duplicated. I always thought about it from those terms, even though I did write all the lyrics for all the bands that I performed in. But it was never like, it was fulfilling, and I really enjoyed that cathartic experience. But I definitely was always way more focused on sort of the planning aspect of it. And I just wonder if anybody else struggles with that, as far as, like I said, I do view myself as a creative individual, but then at the same time, what am I actually creating? I'm talking into a microphone, having discussions with people. That is obviously creative in and of itself. But then I'm more excited when I actually have the episode recorded. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I can post it this week. And, hopefully the band will promote it, and, maybe the, record label will promote it, whatever. I just think about it in those terms, and not to say that I bring in guests that are for the sole reason of them promoting the show, because these are people I just find interesting no matter what. But yeah, so I just want to know if anybody else out there has that sort of creative struggle where it's like they view themselves one way, but then the other side of their brain takes over because it's more dominant and whatever. Anyways, Tom from Hostage Calm. Hostage Calm is an amazing band. I met them because they stayed at my room when the first year that myself and my good friend Joey were doing Sound and Fury. They didn't have a room to stay in, and my friend Sean was like, hey, can these dudes crash? And I said, sure. Nice dudes. They totally stuck out like a sore thumb at the festival, because they have this whole sort of replacements, Buddy Holly, sort of pop punk, but obviously not the derogatory term pop punk that a lot of people immediately latch onto when it comes to that term. So they put out a record this past year called Please Remain Calm that is just so good. They're a politically based band. They definitely have a lot of things to say. And I was just really excited to be able to sit down with him at the fest in Florida. So again, you can see the timing. It takes me about a month and a half to get a show up, but that's just the way things go. So we sat down at a park bench, and I apologize if the audio gets a little spotty at times, but that's because either people were walking by us or a motorcycle went by or whatever. You can definitely hear the atmosphere. But yeah, anyways, without further ado, here's Tom. Here's our conversation. I'll talk to you after.
I was aware of your presence prior to Sound and Fury, because that was 2010, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the awesome motorcycle year. Just great memories for me. But I just remember, us putting you guys on the bill, and I was excited because like that was the first year that we really could. That was the first year that Joey and I had sort of control, and we wanted to put bands that weren't your typical bands that got put on every single year.
Yeah.
Just to kind of stretch kids' expectations of what Sound and Fury is. That's why we were excited to put you guys on, because obviously, like, you totally felt left of center. Like, you didn't fit, with everything that was happening.
Yeah, totally.
And then seeing you guys, and obviously, like, meeting all of you, and you crashed in my room that night. It was, you guys are just a bunch of random dudes, and it's like, that really comes across in the music that you guys create. And those were just my first initial impressions, where it was just like, oh, like, even though they fall within the whole punk and hardcore scene, that's not exactly where the breadth of knowledge of why you're creating music to kind of begin with,
Yeah.
And so from Connecticut, you yourself, like, were you born and raised there?
Yeah. Yep. I was born in New Haven. I grew up in a small town called Durham.
Okay. That's where wasn't the Tune In there, like the old hardcore venue? Yeah.
Yep. And so the rest of the guys are from Wallingford, which is a town over from Durham, and we just got to know each other from going to shows.
Wallingford, that's like where Yukon is, right? Or like
no, Yukon's up north. It's like an hour north of that. It's in Stores.
Stores, right. So, yeah, I played some shows in that area. I think I played on
at Yukon,
the Yukon campus with the In Pieces guys. Like, I don't remember that band.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like your brothers and sisters, like what does your parents do? Like,
I have a younger sister. She lives in Boston now. I also live in Boston. I don't know. My parents are from Connecticut too.
Sure. What do they do job wise? Like when you were introduced in the world, and what you remember?
My dad's like a contractor, builds houses.
Okay.
And my mom works at Wesleyan University.
Oh yeah,
it's in Middletown, which is another town over from Durham.
That's not an all-female college, is it? Or is it? No, okay.
It's like a art school kind of college.
Right. What does she do there? Just like
she's like an admin assistant.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
So yeah.
Because a lot of people view Connecticut or certain areas of Connecticut as very, like upper class.
Yeah.
So was that your experience? Like, you had a pretty solid foundation as far as,
I wouldn't say the stereotypical Connecticut experience. I think
Sure.
when people think about that, they think of like Westchester County, like closer to New York. Like
Right.
super rich people whose parents like work in the city and stuff.
That's true.
I definitely wasn't struggling.
Right. Obviously, your dad's a contractor who works with his hands, essentially.
Yeah, totally. And growing up in high school and college, I worked with him doing construction every summer from high school through college, and then when I graduated, I couldn't get a job, so I worked with him. So,
so you know how to do shit with your hands.
I know how to do shit with my hands. I'm kind of handy, and I definitely learned a pretty valuable work ethic from doing that.
Yeah.
And seeing how hard he worked to provide for the family and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody that is able to have that experience of, I don't know how to do shit. Like, if you put, this faucet's broken, I gotta call somebody.
Yeah.
And so it's like I always. And my parents were never. That wasn't. It's not that it wasn't important to them, but that was just never something I was surrounded by.
Right.
So it's like it's always nice, because I do think that more people don't know how to do shit than are able to work with their hands.
I don't realize it because I grew up with it, and if something goes wrong with the van, I pop on the hood and I kind of know what to do, or like I change the oil, or all kinds of stuff. Like that.
So you're the technical dude in the band that's able to sort of put pieces together.
Yeah.
You always need one of those in the band. Like anytime that happened in the bands that I was in, I was always just like, bass player, like so someone else, like should you check the hood, because like I don't know what's happening under there. I know where to put in gas, and I know the basic framework. But,
right. It's helpful.
And
one time we were on tour, I forget where, and the starter went.
Okay.
And it was crapping out on us for a while. We needed to when the weather got cold, we needed to climb out of the van and kind of tap on it with a wrench to get it to get the engine to turn.
Sure.
So we're driving and we just see the battery draining, and luckily we caught it. And we were in Missouri or something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And luckily we were able to find like a Pep Boys or an AutoZone or something like that.
Right.
And we just went in, asked for the part, asked if they had any tools they could let us use, and we were able to like change it. It took like 2 hours, but we were able to get under and do it, and it cost us like $50.
It's amazing. Yeah, instead of the towing and everything else that goes. Yeah. That's awesome.
So,
yeah, like I said, you always need someone in that band. Usually, it's funny because it's not usually the singer. It's usually always someone else that just kind of, because you have your sort of like typical roles where it's like, the singer is sometimes like the default business guy just because he's up front and people like to pay them, settle for the show. It's like, oh yeah, I recognize
it's a
that.
figure that people recognize, yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, but I'm the business dude and the dad.
Nice.
So.
You're the band dad.
I'm the band dad. I think mostly. I don't think anybody would object to that.
My least favorite part, because I filled that role as well. My least favorite part about that was, I don't know if you're like this too, where it's like you wake up before everybody else in the band, and you have to wake all of them up.
We have the last couple tours. We've been bringing this merch dude, our friend Peanut, and he has been really into like TMing the tour and stuff like that. So
Got it.
He wakes everybody up. I generally like to get up earlier than everybody else just to like set my mind straight and have
this is what we got going on today.
Yeah, and just kind of get ready for the day before everybody starts moving and.
Right, everyone's trying to figure out showers. I just always remember like when you're waking up your fellow dudes in your band, that obviously it's like you've been on the road for like 2-3 weeks, and they just give you that look like, fucking let me sleep. Like just that look, just that immediate like, why are you touching me right now?
Yeah.
That was like my least favorite part about being that, like you said, that sort of dad role.
Yeah. When somebody rolls over and it's like,
yeah, totally. Just that
stare.
that look of doom. It's like, oh god, I'm sorry. Dude, we gotta go. We got like an 8-hour drive. Like, we'd wake up at 4 in the morning. I'm sorry.
Sleep in the van.
Right, totally. And so, as your formative years were essentially in Connecticut. And, as you were kind of, sort of a two-part question, we can obviously dance around it, but when you were kind of, sort of introduced to independent music, and then I imagine it was like in roughly the high school age, and then like, how was your high school experience? Like, what sort of, did you play sports? Were you kind of like an indoor dude? Like, how?
Yeah. I got into music, like independent music in high school through some of my good friends, and they had older brothers that were a couple years older that, had gotten into it. There was a local ska band, or 2 local ska bands actually, that came out of my high school.
Oh, really?
There was a good, like, local scene with just... ska was big at that point, and there was a lot of local ska bands in the scene in Connecticut. Was strong.
What time frame was this? Was this like?
I don't know, when was I in high school? 2000 to 2004.
Yeah, early 2000. Sure.
Yeah.
So,
I just I got into ska bands like Spring Heel Jackers band from Connecticut.
Yeah.
And then other goofy stuff like Aquabats.
Of course.
Catch 22 and stuff like that.
Were you an Aqua Cadet?
I didn't get that deep into it.
Okay. Well, I was, so it's okay.
You're from
judgments.
California,
Yes,
though, right?
Southern
Okay.
California. Yeah. I mean, that was like part and parcel. Like you get into
there.
totally. It's just, I mean, Aquabats are still to this day can bring a smile to my face. Like, how could you not listen to that and have fun?
Totally.
Yeah.
We were at some burrito place last night, and Idiot Box came on. I was like, hell yeah.
Totally. Such a good song.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. I always get stoked when it's like, because you find certain music scenes to be so attached to, like you said, Aquabat, Southern California. It's like, third wave ska, like Southern California. That was like such a, an integral part of that. But it's like, I always get stoked when it's like bands obviously can, you're in Connecticut and Aquabats were still an important part. It's like, it's nice to see that can sort of, pollinate elsewhere.
It's funny to like trace my independent music like lineage and try to go back to where it started. And I mean, that's where it started for me, but to see like how those kids that got me into those bands, like I have no idea how they came across the Aquabats,
Right.
So
yeah, was music like kind of a part of your growing up as far as like your parents? Like, did they have any sort of connection to music, like play the radio or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't play instruments or anything like that. They were always really supportive of that kind of thing. I played in like school band and stuff like that.
Oh, what'd you play in school band?
Played trumpet.
Oh, wow.
So,
Were you first chair, second chair, third chair?
I was way back there. Way back there. No natural musical ability whatsoever.
But yeah, I played clarinet and I was absolutely terrible at it.
Yeah.
I have asthma too, which is also like why
That's
my
bad
mom
for a wind instrument.
totally like why my mom thought that the only reason she did is because she already owned a clarinet, so she's like, oh, this is an easy fit.
Right. You
But
don't
I was
have to
like
spend $1,000 on an instrument.
totally.
Yeah, there you
And I
go.
was like you. I was totally in the back, just squeaking away. I mean, I was probably much worse off than you were because I had no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, either I didn't have the capabilities physically, or the musical capabilities as well. But
Yeah.
it was still a fun experience.
Yeah, it was cool. My parents also kind of forced me into taking piano lessons
Yep.
when I was a little bit younger than that.
Elementary
And I was-
school, probably.
Yeah, I mean, and I wanted to play guitar, so it was like, I'm not totally into like dedicating a ton of time to the piano, but I stuck with it for probably like 5 or 6 years.
That's cool.
And it was a cool thing.
It's funny because that's like, I hear that so often where it's like, I mean, when you're in elementary school, you see a guitar and you're just like, dude, that shit's awesome.
Yeah.
But then you're like, your parents, I don't know, it's just so, it's attached where it's just like, oh yeah, you need to learn notes, so take the piano first.
And it wasn't even that. I went to take lessons for guitar.
Yeah.
I was going to, and the instructor was like, well, what you should do first is learn piano, because that'll give you like the musical theory base.
Right, the basis.
But the problem was I was like fucking 10 or 12 years old, and like I didn't want to play the piano,
Right.
so I didn't really stick with it.
Right, you're like, I'm not committing to this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like there's only so many. I remember learning like Tom Petty Free Falling on like piano, and I was like, this doesn't sound as cool as the as the song I know in my head.
Yeah.
Okay, so like music was encouraged, but obviously it wasn't.
Yeah. It's not like, I feel like every time you see a documentary on like a huge band or something, it's like, yeah, we grew up and my dad was playing piano and singing songs around the house every time we had a family gathering.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that.
So that's not your VH1 behind the music part.
Yeah, but maybe when I have kids, I'll do that, and then they'll grow up to be famous or something.
Right, exactly.
You
Yeah,
never know.
you can pass it on.
That's my retirement plan.
Right. Dude, perfect retirement plan. You're just like, you know what? I plan to be mediocrely successful, but my kids are gonna fucking kill it. So you were, that was kind of the lineage of you sort of being like, once you picked up a guitar and that sort of, like, did you know that you wanted to play in a band, and was that sort of?
Actually, the beginning of me wanting to play in a band was I was in 8th grade, and I went to we had like a talent show at
Sure.
the school, 7th and 8th grade, and I was in 7th grade actually. A friend of mine was in 8th grade, this dude Ethan, who played in a band called the Flaming Tsunamis, who's like a pretty cool ska band from Connecticut.
I'm familiar.
This was like before all that. He played with 2 other dudes in this talent show. It was like noon in the middle of the week, and they were just doing it.
Right.
And they did a Queers cover like really loud, and we're just all sitting in the auditorium, and I was just like, this is the coolest fucking thing.
Yeah, you're like, I want to do what you're doing.
Yeah. So I think that was like the beginning of me wanting to.
Yeah, that was like the seed that was planted.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like you got into ska, and then that sort of like that was the introductory point, and that's kind of where you splintered off into more punk and hardcore or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that at that point, I think third wave ska was really associated with like the Fat Wreck thing and all that going on. So I was into that before I was really going to shows, and then like I said, there was ska bands from my high school and ska bands in the area, so I eventually got sucked into going to shows that way.
Right.
And then started my own high school ska band a little later on.
Oh, spectacular! Well, can I ask you the name of that ska band?
And it's called the Royal Assassins, after the Magic card.
That's perfect.
Perfect third wave ska.
That like, there's nothing more. If you're your first band, you should have either a terrible name or just like a completely on the nose appropriate name for whatever music you are playing.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing in a pop punk band, you need to be just something so on that point.
Yeah.
Or it needs to be absolutely terrible where you're just like there's been multiple conversations I've had with people over the podcast where they're like, yeah, I'm not even telling you the name of the band. I'm like, but everyone has an embarrassing first band.
Yeah.
But it's something that doesn't occur to me too is where it's like I was interviewing Jamie from Code Orange Kids, the drummer, and he was like, if I tell you the band name, kids are gonna look it up because like that shit still exists online. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's true. Like all that stuff, from earlier days, because I mean he's 18 or 19
Yeah,
years
he's a
old,
young dude, yeah.
and so like, oh yeah, there is a digital footprint. Whereas like my first band or your first band, like you probably don't have anything.
Yeah, no, it's not online at all.
Right, you cannot find this.
Yeah.
That's funny. And so that was that in like sophomore, junior year in high school that you started to.
The band started in junior year and then senior year, and then we broke up and everybody went to college.
What did you do in the band?
I played guitar. I wrote most of the songs. It was cool. I was super into Anti-Flag at the time.
Okay, sure.
So basically, it sounded like Anti-Flag with 4-piece horn section.
Dude, 4-piece horns.
It was pretty intense. And this dude Pete that played saxophone was taking like advanced music theory classes. So I'd write like a horn line on the guitar, and then he would arrange like a 4-part harmony. And it was just completely ridiculous.
Well, I mean that's
pretty cool.
That's a cool experience as your first band to like have a person that's like obviously musically talented, like really legitimately musically talented.
It was crazy. You know, he knew how to do all that stuff, and I was just playing power chords.
Right.
You know?
You're figuring it out on your own.
Right, and so I couldn't even communicate with him about it. I would just like show him a riff, and he'd be like, okay. And then he'd just like figure out how to play it and then do his thing.
Yeah, he could like verbalize it where you're just like, I gotta show you, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, as you were going through high school, like, you know, was school important to you? You know, did you apply yourself? Like, did you enjoy the experience, or was it just one of those things where it was like, I'm just trying to endure this?
I mean, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
You know, my high school was small, and luckily, everybody got along. I guess.
That's good. Yeah.
You know, it was cool, but as far as the actual school part goes, I didn't care.
Right.
I didn't do badly, but I just
you did enough to kind of.
Yeah, I did enough to get by.
To maintain the level.
Yeah.
Make sure that like your parents weren't coming down too hard on you.
Yeah. You know, and I like when I went to apply for colleges, I did really well on my SATs and just had really like average grades that like didn't reflect that. And
right.
So I remember getting letters from colleges, and like they would say like, you know, you don't apply yourself. Like, we can tell just because your SAT scores are here and your grades are here. And
what'd you get on your SATs, if you remember?
I got a 1400.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah. So if you're getting that and then like a C average, they're like, there's a disconnect here.
Yeah, I took actually took AP Calculus my senior year, and I got like a D or a D minus or something.
Right.
But because it was an AP course in high school, they
graded up.
Like,
yeah, of course. Right.
Oh, you know,
I got a C.
I got a C.
It was just hard for me.
But I hated that. That was my last experience with math.
Yeah, you're like, my hands were washed.
Yeah.
Was it because I always found my math experiences to be terrible, just based solely on the teacher. Like I like math in and of itself wasn't too scary to me, but I don't know why math teachers just always are synonymous with being just, you know, either dicks or just like terrible. But you just didn't like math. The teacher was
I
mean,
right? the teacher was a good dude.
Yeah.
He was a math dude, and if you wanted to learn AP Calculus, you could totally do that from him. And
right.
You know, but he was just like dragging me through it, and like I only took it because it was an AP course, and everybody's like, "Oh, you can take
looks
an AP
good on
course.
your of course.
Looks good for colleges."
Sure.
But like, I mean, I knew that I didn't want to do anything like that.
Yeah.
Like I knew that
this isn't going to practically impact my life as I move on.
Right. I knew that when I was taking algebra in my freshman year. It's just like,
this is not the course for me.
This is not for me, but I'll suck it up and get through it.
Yeah. So as you were going through high school, did you have any sense of like, you know, what you wanted to quote unquote do? Like, was it one of those things where you were like, oh yeah, I would love to, you know, obviously not do math, but.
No, I mean, I didn't know. I had my interests and everything, but I didn't have like any sort of direction. I knew that I was going to go to college, and then when I got to college, I kind of figured it out.
Sure.
And then, but I mean, I guess every day you're figuring it out.
Yeah, no, totally. You don't know, like I always, because I mean, I'm 32 years old now, and like I look back at like, you know, my 20s, like, you know, when you were 20, and I was like, I wish, like, I love being 30 because it's like you're not as stupid as you were when you were 20.
Totally.
It's like you look back and you're just like, God, I was an idiot. Like, I mean, not even like from an overall perspective, but you're just like, these decisions I made, or like all these things, like, you know, just the hindsight is 2020, and like being able to realize like, oh yeah, like, you know, I didn't need to do this in order to accomplish this or whatever. But so like you had your interests. Well, what were your interests in high school? That was kind of besides music, obviously.
Just kind of like the social side of things, I guess, like history and
sure.
And I was always into politics, like I said, an Anti-Flag.
Of course,
was
yeah.
For me. And you know, music like that.
Was that the first band that sort of had a political message that really like you gravitated towards?
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was. And, earlier Rise Against stuff when I was in high school.
Heck yeah.
I love that stuff. And I always gravitated towards those kind of bands.
Of course.
So that's the kind of stuff that interested me in school, but there's not like a politics course
right.
in high school.
Yeah.
I think we had
like civics maybe or
mandatory
something.
civics, and that was just like a fucking joke.
Totally. But, yeah, it's like it's a whitewashed version of the story that is told in every history book.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I knew when I was going to college I wanted to take political science, but I had no idea what I was going to do with that. I still have no idea what I could do with that.
Right.
Become a professor.
Right. Or work in DC doing something somewhere.
Right, and even at that point, like what you learned in political science doesn't really.
Yeah, it's not applicable.
It's just like a history lesson.
That's true. I never really thought about it from that perspective, but yeah, that's true. And so then what college did you go to?
I went to UConn.
Oh, okay, cool.
So.
Yeah, I love their basketball team. I'm a big college basketball guy.
Yeah.
I remember just watching Ray Allen play for UConn like in the mid '90s and just being like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, there's no pro sports team in Connecticut. So
right.
UConn is UConn basketball.
Totally. Yeah.
When I was younger, I went to Ray Allen's Slamma-Jamma basketball camp.
Oh, amazing!
Basketball camp, and he would come for like a day or a couple.
So you guys
days
are bros, basically.
Yeah, we're good buddies. He's coming over for Thanksgiving this year.
You text him.
Yeah.
Hey, Ray, you got traded to the Heat. What's up with that?
What's the deal, man? How are we gonna hang out now?
That's awesome. So you're a basketball fan. You play it and everything like that.
I mean, I'm a UConn fan. I played basketball and baseball in high school and
nice.
stuff like that. So
did you play all 4 years in high school for both those sports?
Yeah, I quit basketball my senior year. I played baseball all 4 years. I grew up playing baseball. My dad was a big baseball guy. So
oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Those are. I mean, it's funny because you see obvious a reaction within like the hardcore and punk scene is always like sports is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And it's like I can understand the sport like mentality is stupid, obviously,
right.
But the idea of sports that's great. Team building, how to work together with people that you may not associate. Like, I just always hate that immediate reaction where it's just like, oh, I don't watch that, or it's like I don't like people that also have the same reaction to like television, where it's just like, oh, television is trash. It's like, well, no, like you just not are you're not you're looking at the reality shows that are out there.
Right. Youth crew and youth sports go hand in hand. It's perfect.
That's true. I didn't really think of it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And so then, when did Hostage Calm kind of become a part of your life? Like that, I presume that was like sort of in college is when it started to bubble up.
So what happened was my high school ska band broke up right
when you guys moved.
Everybody went to college. Everybody went to different places and stuff like that.
Right.
And I had been playing with, playing locally.
Right.
And Tim, our bass player, and Chris, our singer, were in this band called the Jive Cats, another high school ska band from Wallingford.
Incredible.
Great name.
Incredible.
So they were fans of the Royal Assassins, and I'd met them once or twice, and
right.
So I went to college. I was like trying to get something started. It just wasn't happening, and they asked me to check out their new band, which was Ted Kaczynski and the Mad Bombers, which is like a three-piece punk band that later became a ska band. So I came and saw them a couple times, and eventually they asked me to join the band. Chris was singing and playing guitar.
Oh, okay.
And he just wanted to sing, so I joined on guitar and kind of started. I played like 2 or 3 shows with Ted K.
Sure.
And
I like the abbreviation, by the way, Ted K.
Ted K.
You can't because once you say it, it's set. Then Ted K is the abbreviation.
There it is. So I played I think I played 2 shows with Ted K. And then we changed the name to At All Costs, which was a youth crew hardcore band with horns.
Right. At All Costs, there was a band from Texas that was called.
It was a metal band.
Yeah, because I worked at Century Media for a few years, and
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, is there a random connection there?
No. Funny story about that. One time we played at the Chance in Poughkeepsie.
Of course.
Or the Loft, whatever the smaller one is.
Right.
And Walls of Jericho was playing the next one over. And one of the dudes in Walls of Jericho was like walking around, and for some reason he was like, "Oh, what band are you guys in?" We're like, "At All Costs," and he thought we were At All Costs.
Right,
metal
the
band
Texas
from
metal
Texas.
band. Right.
And he was really confused. We had like our shitty van. He was like, "Is this your ride?" They're like, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And we were confused too because we weren't immediately like, oh, he's thinking of the metal band.
No,
We didn't
yeah,
really
you wouldn't.
know.
Right, you wouldn't put that together.
And he's like, oh yeah, we got our bus over here, blah blah blah. He's like, you don't want to grab some merch? And we're like, at that point we realized they were like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, let's sell this dude some merch. And he was like, dude, you guys take plastic? And we're like, no, sorry, dude. And he's like, okay. And I think he kind of figured it out and he walked away.
Right. He was like, oh, I think I made an error in this.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And so, like, did you, because you said you graduated college with a political science degree?
Yeah, I did political science and journalism.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. But backing up a little bit.
Sure.
So we had At All Costs started.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was my freshman or sophomore year of college. And we played a lot locally, and we always wanted to tour.
Right.
You know, and that was like the thing, to really get out there and go.
Sure.
So we did a lot of weekends, and we toured a little bit.
Over breaks and stuff like that, I'm sure.
Yeah, over breaks. Tim and Chris were a little bit younger than me.
Okay.
And so they're 2 years behind me in school. So when I was a junior, they were freshmen.
Got it.
Chris went to UConn. Tim went to Eastern Connecticut State University, which was like right down the road.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, we just kept going with it.
And this was you said this was a 3-piece band, right?
No.
Oh no, that was the Ted K.
Ted K.
3-piece. Got it.
Ted K. Was a punk band.
Right.
Became a ska band.
Got it.
And then that's when
Okay, yeah. I've always been intrigued with 3-piece bands because it's always like, it's amazing to travel with only 3 people in the band.
know.
We're just like, dude, so much room in the van. Like,
Yeah.
even as a 4-piece, like, just be like, oh my god, like, there's one less body in this van.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just always been intrigued by 3-piece bands. Be like, that seems like the optimal route.
I'm sure it's easier.
yeah, for sure.
But so in like 2007, I guess I was a junior.
Okay.
I was a junior in college. One of the trumpet players the trumpet player in At All Costs decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and he was like joining the army or whatever.
Sure.
So we're like, okay, we're not going to continue with this. We're going to just continue writing, but we're not going to do ska band anymore. So that's when we changed I guess At All Costs broke up when we had our last show.
Right.
And then we started Hostage Con, and we recorded a demo
Sure.
before the last At All Costs show was done.
Oh, okay.
And it was me, Chris, Tim, and Brett, who
Okay.
was the drummer of At All Costs, and had known those guys for a while.
Got it.
So yeah, that's when Hostage Con
That was when it
started
kinda came into your
in
life.
2007, yep.
And you were always pretty committed to the idea of like finishing college and like not, dropping out, or was that like
Yeah.
kind of in your head? We're like, I don't know, man. Like
No,
this whole.
I mean, we all were pretty committed to it. I think we all came from families where it was really important to our parents that we get our degree and finish
That's good.
college and stuff like that. And we had all gone to state schools, so the education was relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, that's true.
And to be honest, school never really limited us from doing anything. We didn't have like a booking agent throwing tours at us, being like, "You guys got to go in October. Like, you're in school. What are you doing?" You know?
Right.
We were still figuring everything out and doing
Yeah.
everything ourselves at that point. So, we toured on our breaks. We toured.
Yeah, you toured when it made sense, but yeah, because I just always like, people always have that experience where it's like the dreaded conversation you have to have with your parents, where it's just like, oh, dude, I'm dropping out of school because I want to tour, and it's like, every parent's like, shit, you're not, like, that's a terrible idea. But it's cool that you guys obviously like were committed to the idea of like, all right, we'll finish our obligations here, and then obviously like, whatever happens after that, we could do whatever we want after that.
Totally. Luckily, it was never to a point where
You had to
so
make
conflicted about it that we were forced into a decision.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time away from school, like doing weekends and stuff like that, and that kind of stuff was really helpful as far as building the band.
Sure. Was it? I always remember doing stuff like that, and then if you had like a Monday afternoon class where you just basically like got dropped off like at your classroom. So did you ever do those where it was just like you got dropped off with your school bag and you just walked into a class and you were just like
Totally. So, but it was cool.
Yeah. I think it's a fun experience too, because it's like obviously not everybody has the ability to be in even if it's a smaller touring band, and so it's like they don't understand, and you come into the class and they're like, oh, you're in a band, like, oh yeah, you just played some shows over the weekend. Like a lot of people don't understand that concept.
Yeah.
They think that you're in some like arena rock band or something like that. Why haven't I heard of you yet? Well,
Yeah, but yeah. So that was cool. Getting to start that, and
Right.
then so that was 2007,
Sure.
and then I graduated in May 2008. I did journalism and political science.
Sure.
And then I still had 2 years to go before the rest of the guys graduated.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, fuck, I gotta get a
Yeah,
job
you had to
now.
kind of you had to bide your time a little bit.
Yeah.
I was just saying that so that was the goal, where it was like once my other dudes graduate, then
Yeah.
kind of make a go of
It
it.
wasn't always the intended goal, but I think as Hachichan got started and we picked up a lot of steam locally,
Sure.
it became obvious that that's what we wanted to do.
Right.
So,
I mean, hearing obviously like where you guys have come from, and obviously like how your band sounds now, and like kind of all the different influences, because it's like anybody that has ever asked me like what Hostage Calm sounds like, and like what the best way that I describe it is just basically like, yeah, it's I mean, obviously it has like elements of punk, and without the pejorative, like pop punky, like,
Yeah.
but like imagine a little Elvis Costello, a little Replacements, like that sort of vibe, and people are kind of like, oh, like people seem to just not understand. People just probably like to put you in one corner where it's just like, oh yeah, Hostage Calm is like they're kind of a pop punk band.
yeah.
Like
I
they
think
just,
people like to do that with every band.
it's true. Yeah. You're not special, don't you?
It's not even that. They just like to. People just like to have something that they can understand.
Yeah.
They grasp it.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, like the way that the band has been perceived, and like you guys you're not an easy fit anywhere, and like that, I'm sure has its merits, where it's like obviously you play on a tour or on a show, and because you sound different than the other bands, kids kind of are like, oh, what was that?
What's going on?
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it definitely goes both ways.
Right. But that, I mean, I presume you would obviously have it no other way. Like you guys obviously like to be that sort of, oh, like that's something interesting and
Totally.
different in a way.
Totally.
And do you like, where do you guys find yourselves like most at home, where it's just like, oh, like we've seemed to resonate better like on a hardcore show, on sort of like where have you been able to find sort of a more logical fit for you guys, like on a bill or on a tour?
I mean, not really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's always going to be that way.
Right.
And I would like it to be that way.
Right.
We can play a hardcore show.
Sure.
And we can play a pop punk show or a punk show.
Right.
And there are going to be kids from each one that get into us or that are fans of ours.
Right.
So I think that's just how we do things, and just how it's going to be for us. And eventually, hopefully, we pull in enough kids from all those different scenes where we have like a thing of our own.
Right. Yeah, you've built it through this hard work, as opposed to sounding immediate, pulling from just one source, and obviously just like having that base and like that base only.
Yeah, and it's cool. I mean, obviously you can tell in our music we like tons of different kinds of music, and just even going through all the releases that Hostage Drama has done, and we started off as a punk hardcore band, or like with punk hardcore songs, and then just kind of went through this evolution, and it's all music that we like and we still listen to, and it's still like a part of our ethos and what we do.
Yeah, it's not like, I mean, you're not burnt, you're not throwing out the rule book each time you're writing a new record. You're just like merely like tearing out some pages, adding some back in, as opposed to like I said, just completely, we're reinvented now. Like we're a ska band again.
that's like LP number 7.
Yeah, you have the grand vision where it's like, we will return to our roots once we have gotten this far.
No, but I think like especially hardcore kids can see us now and say, there's something hardcore about them that I still see and that I like, or is the ethos or the vibe, whatever.
Right.
I think we'll always have that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, just because it's like, you have not only like stylistically, but then you've obviously also quote unquote put in your time with that. So it's like it's not all of a sudden you're just like, oh yeah, like we want to play that hardcore shit. Like we want to hop on that. It's like there's obviously that connection there, so it's not awkward. And the kind of what you were talking about earlier in regards to obviously for lack of a better term, protest music, where it was like obviously the bands that you first got into, like and hostage calm, for lack of a better term, like, you know, you definitely fall into a band that actually is trying to say something, and, you know, will actually stand for something, and, you know, prints t-shirts that actually say something. I'm sure that's obviously given you guys, you know, I mean, a lot of credibility in the scene, but then I'm sure there are people from the outside that, I mean, have you ever gotten, you know, crazy hate mail from people being like, you know, oh, you support gay marriage or whatever, like, you know, these things like that from, you know, a lot of the, whatever, right-wing / outside world, like, don't understand, like, but they would see something like your shirt and be like, fuck this, where is this coming from, you know? Have you guys ever received any sort of, you know, direct feedback in regards to that?
Not yet.
That's good.
I'm looking forward to it, though. Hopefully
I'm looking forward to it, because you got, and on that same note, like, you guys obviously, you guys interact with people, like, and when I say people, like, you interact with the internet as a whole in a very, you know, sort of tongue-in-cheek, entertaining way, where you're just like, you know, you're serious about your message, but, you know, you're also humans, and you have, you know, emotions.
I think that really is a reflection of us as people. We're a bunch of goofballs,
right?
You know, but like I said, we are passionate about the things that we're passionate about, and that's really the point of us doing the music. You know, we love playing in bands, and we love writing and playing songs together. But the message and getting that across in our music is very important. I think all of our view on punk and hardcore is that it should be something that's used to make the world a better place.
Sure.
And so that's always central to us. But like you were saying, we are just a bunch of random goofballs.
Right.
And so, you know, that comes across. And I think kids like that. They see it, and they see us as real people. We're not just out there. We're not just a message. Or we're not just like, I support same-sex marriage. We're just a group of dudes, and this is what we're doing.
Right.
And like,
yeah, no, I think that, I mean, obviously with the sort of accessibility of bands now, where it's like, you know, people are able to get a peek behind the scene, so to speak.
Right.
Because I always remember, like Earth Crisis, like, clearly a very, you know, hard line, like, all their views are very extreme. And I just remember, like, they put out a DVD where they did, like, a tour in Japan, and it's like, you know, it shows the singer Carl, like, you know, throwing chairs off of, like, a hotel rooftop and just, like, goofing around, and I was like, he has a sense of humor? Like, he's, like, but totally, like, it humanizes that, and you're just like, oh, even though you may have, quote-unquote, extreme beliefs, it's like, there are emotions behind it. Like, this person isn't just, like, this stoic political message, and, like, this statue of, you know, strength and whatever. Like, it's nice that you're able to, you know, I mean, probably the same could be said for a band like Rise Against, where it's like, people, I presume, assume that Tim is, like, the most serious dude of all time, and, like, he's only going to have a conversation with you about political stuff, and, like, that's not the case of who he is as an individual.
But I mean, that's the whole point of social media, and it's cool. Like you were saying before, when my high school band started, we weren't on the internet. You can't find it on the internet or anything. And now you can't do a band without the internet, it seems like. So it definitely has changed the game a little bit, but it's cool because, I mean, that's the whole point, is to interact with people and just be yourself. You know, and let people see that.
Yeah. It gives you another, I mean, obviously there's probably too many channels to communicate, but it gives you a different channel to obviously be able to have that direct interaction with people who are looking for it, you know?
Right, totally.
And so, like, you mentioned earlier that you help out with Run for Cover. Do you actually, like, you know, you officially work there when you're not on tour and everything like that? And
I work there when I'm on tour too.
Right.
But yeah, that's my job. I'm the label manager.
Oh, nice.
That's
cool.
So, yeah, it's really cool.
How long have you been doing that?
I started in April 2011.
Okay.
And then I moved up to Boston last November. So I've been working in and out of the office since then.
Right. And so you've was that something you were really interested to try, just based off the fact that, you know, like you were saying, you were kind of, you know, the business dude of the band, and you sort of saw that, like, oh, this could be a fun experience for me? Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty natural for me. We had hooked up with Run for Cover and Jeff in 2010.
Right.
Or I guess late 2009. And then our self-titled record came out in 2010.
Right.
Around that time, Transit put out Keep This to Yourself, and Man Overboard put out Real Talk. And there was just a ton going on. Jeff was running the label by himself in his bedroom, and the bands were expanding too quickly for him to keep up with. So,
Right.
you know, we were on tour with Transit when we played Sound and Fury.
Yep.
Or maybe we weren't on tour with Transit at that point.
They played there.
Yeah.
So but yeah, maybe you toured with them
it might have
afterwards.
been right after that.
Right.
But anyways, so, you know, we were talking about how the releases were going and just everything about the record, and I was just giving Jeff tons of feedback, and you know, he trusted me.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, he asked me to work for the label. Said, you know, I really need to hire somebody. Do you want to give it a shot? And I did, and it's been great.
That's cool. Yeah. It's funny because how you see, I mean, like our mutual friend Chris, like, you know, I help him out with No Sleep stuff, and it's like, you know, essentially I'm doing a lot of the same stuff that you're doing.
Right.
It's just so funny to see that. It's in this day and age that sort of, you know, one-man bedroom operation can still have a place and like still be able to like grow.
Yeah.
And not, you know, not get to the point where it's like it's either unmanageable or you know, it's so, or they have to like, you know, like Chris or Jeff have to like shrink and just be like, oh, I can't expand because I can't handle this.
Right.
Because obviously everybody looks at the way that the music industry is going and it's just like, oh yeah, like, you know, I mean, Chris and Jeff would probably both joke that like, you know, kids always ask them like, oh, how do you start a record label? Oh, don't do it. Like, I know those jokes fly around all the time. Like, oh yeah, best advice, just don't waste your money. So the experience has obviously been like gratifying. And did you ever, I mean, like, was the music industry something that you always kind of wanted to sort of work alongside or with?
No, not at all. I didn't want to be a part of the industry. You know, I just wanted to do my band.
Right.
And, you know, play my songs. And whenever the band was done, I would go do whatever else I was going to do. Which I hadn't figured out.
Right. Yeah.
But, you know, I love it.
That's cool.
I love doing it. You know, it's like, I went from being the band dad to working at a label where my responsibilities are to kind of oversee stuff that goes on with all our bands.
Sure.
You know, so I try to bring as much experience as I have and you know, help everybody else out.
Yeah.
And it's cool because Run for Cover has bands and, you know, No Sleep has bands that are at lots of different levels. There's bands that are just starting out, bands that have only put out a 7-inch, and there's bands that have put out a couple LPs and are, you know, playing the biggest bands on the label.
Of course.
And so everybody's in a different situation, and it's always interesting.
Yeah, it definitely you can definitely have so many different conversations about similar things, but on completely different levels.
Yeah, and every band wants different things.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has their own idea about where their band is going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
I think the biggest thing...
Always different from mine and where my band wants to go. I mean, not always different, but it's just interesting to see that. You know, I grew up with it. I guess I came up with a pretty singular vision of what I wanted to accomplish with the band, and I mean...
Not everybody has the same visions,
Yeah,
no, that's definitely interesting, especially, like, you know... with your experience of like, okay, my band is putting out records on this label that I work for, you know, does that make it hard for you at all to obviously like wrap your head around like, okay, like, you know, this, I need to make sure that these two worlds are as separate as they possibly can be?
I mean, it hasn't really been hard.
That's good.
I obviously am super careful about the amount of time that I devote to Hostage Calm.
Hostage Calm 100% of the time.
Right.
Run for Cover. Rest of the bands, they fall somewhere in the B list. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, so I obviously am very careful about that, and I don't. The last thing I want is for one of the bands to say, "Oh, you know, you didn't get this done for us. You were busy doing Hostage Calm stuff,
right?
You know, while you're working for the label, getting paid with money." From records that we sold.
Yeah, totally.
No, that's not.
Sorry, Basement. That's not happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, it hasn't been hard, and there's always more stuff to do than there are hours in the day.
Right.
So you know,
it's an ever-evolving beast for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally.
And sort of, you know, to like wrap things up, sort of in conclusion, you know, most of the conversations that I have within the context of this show have always been, you know, sort of either, you know, pieces of advice, like things that people have learned throughout, either if it's like, you know, their band, their small business, whatever, because essentially I'm just trying to get a snapshot of what it's like to either, you know, be in a band or whatever independent culture you're involved in, that like kind of why you create that and, you know, the pitfalls that exist. You know, what have been some of the most either eye-opening lessons that you've learned, like, you know, playing in bands for as long as you have, whether it's like, you know, business-wise or otherwise, like, you know, creating music with other people and having, you know, that sort of family-like relationship with a band, because so many people don't understand that that's exactly what it is. Like, it's like having, you know, 4 or 5 other significant others.
Family,
So what sort of things have popped out to you, like, oh wow, like I learned a lot from this experience? I'll just to put it in context for you. Like I remember one of the times where I would always play like Chain Reaction with my old bands, and I remember getting paid one night, and you know, so whatever, it was like $150 or something, and so like I took the money and turned away, like in the envelope, and turned away, and the promoter was like, no, count that in front of me. Like, I want to make you, like, you need to make sure that you're getting that money, like it's you know, that it is $150. Like, as much as you'd like to just take people's word for that type of shit, like, you know, you could be in the, you know, Wichita, Kansas, and a sketchy promoter, and it's like you drive away, and it's like, cool, we got $50 and we were promised 200 or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, any sort of experiences that you have in your own head that were just like, oh yeah, like that shit was hard, and I learned from that.
You know.
Yeah, you can take your time. I understand.
I think about this kind of stuff a lot, you know, with everything I've done with the label and the band to this point. Like,
totally.
I'm trying to think of specific experiences.
Yeah. No, I know. It's always hard. It's always hard when you put on the spot for something like that, because it's, it's like, you know, the lessons, but you're like, I don't know why I learned that particular thing, like that specific instance.
Yeah. I think, I guess, I mean, this is a little different, but
it's fine.
In general, I think the best thing I've done is just try to be involved in like as many aspects of this, I guess, the industry or music as you can. You know, I came up playing in ska bands or whatever, and I started booking shows in Connecticut. You know, I was playing in a band, and I had a conception of what it took to put on a show, and then I put on a show myself, and everything got flipped upside down. It's totally different, and then I understood that, and that helped when I started going on tours and putting together tours and stuff like that, and that translated into, you know, working at the label, working with agents and management and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I guess. I see exactly where you're going with it, because it's like I think that a lot of people, either for, you know, lack of their own personal drive, like if they're not like, oh yeah, like I'm, you know, fucking get up and go every morning, like, you know, some people just aren't like that. They're not wired like that. But having as much, you know, as much experience in different facets of what it takes to be in a band, and I mean, I guess it's like a life philosophy.
Yeah.
Too, you know, just try to understand everything. Yeah. I guess every part.
Totally. And I think ultimately what that gives you and what that gives other people is empathy, because it's like, you know, you putting on a show in Connecticut and, you know, whatever, you know, losing your shirt and being like, I'll still pay the bands, like, you know, pay them out of my own pocket or whatever.
Right. Because I've been there, and I've been the band wanting to get paid.
Totally, yeah, and it's like you know, you can flip it, like, you know, of course, if that person is like fucking up and doing a terrible job, you're just looking to be like, yo, like, I can empathize with you, but you fucked up, like, I'm not gonna absolve you from responsibilities, like, but yeah.
I should ask you the question.
Yeah. Well, no, because I mean, I agree with you. I've done a lot of this, like, I think it's just like, it's being curious, you know, it's like trying to find so many different things that all pertain to music in some way, shape, or form, and then being able to like take that and apply that to everything, you know, whatever focus that you have, whether it's the band, whether it's a label, or whether it's, you know, anything else that a person does with their life.
Totally.
Yeah, great point. I like that. Well, thanks for wanting to hang out and obviously bullshit in this. Fortunately, it's a very nice day out.
Very nice day. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, dude.
All right, there you have it. Sorry about the audio noise in the background, from motorcycles to sirens and wind and what have you, but you know, gives you a little ambiance, a little feel, so to speak. Yeah, Tom's awesome. Love the fact that he has such a long history with ska, because a lot of people sometimes tend to get a little embarrassed with that, but not Tom, and that's awesome. So check out Property of Zach. We'll be back next week with another episode, and yeah, have a good holiday. Talk to you soon.